It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 398. Wow. Welcome to the week of 16 July 2024. We've got Floppy Disks, Exim, Kaspersky, Darkgate, AT&T, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Exim in partnership with CRA. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from exile on the island of Elba. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your favorite platform, or we will be forced to set up a committee to study it, and you will be on the committee. So just keep that in mind. All right. A warning from Census says that over 1.5 million, with an M, Exim mail transfer agent instances are unpatched. That sounds pretty bad. It always surprises me at how many unpatched servers there are, but then again, it doesn't. But the warning regards a critical vulnerability which would allow attackers to bypass the security filters on Exim. Now, if you don't know what Exim is an open source mail transfer agent, or an MTA, which was developed at the University of Cambridge. And so it's available for free. Tons of people have used this, ever since email got started. It's been around forever. And of course, if a mail transfer agent basically is a listening daemon that receives email and then relays it on. And of course, there was a time in the good old days when you could send fake mails using open relays, on any email server. And there used to be no restrictions on this, which can create some pretty big problems, because I used to send my daughter emails from, like Santa and, or stuff from Bill Clinton at whitehouse.gov and, that kind of thing. But they had to get stricter. And of course, people were using it for spam, and they were using all this stuff. So this particular vulnerability is an issue with the relay, which would allow a remote attacker to deliver an executable attachment into end user mailboxes. Now, the filters typically block executables, and we have another story that mentions this as well today, but they typically block executable files like .exes. But if you can bypass a filter, then yeah, you can push things into people's mailboxes, which are then sitting on a server. So that could possibly run on the server, or it could run on the user's machine. All bad things. Census said there were 1,567,109 Exim instances that were publicly exposed as of the 10th of July that were running a vulnerable version of Exim. Now, the Russian GRU group, which is called, there's one called Sandworm, which you've probably heard of because they've been around forever. They actively exploit Exim instances. It's one of their main targets. They love Exim. There's always, been flaws in it and so forth. Well, there is a patch for this. So if you're running Exim, it would be a good idea to sit down, evaluate your Exim instance, make sure it's patched. The patch came out last week, so you know what to do. Kaspersky Lab. I was always surprised when people use their antivirus. I really was. I mean, I hate to be nasty, but I just was always like, really? I mean, it's like if you knew a product you were using was made in China and you installed it in your house and used it yeah, maybe. Okay. All right. Okay. I get it. But Kaspersky, I mean, when I grew up, Russia was the evil empire. They were bad. It was the Iron Curtain, the USSR, and that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, and I might want to drive a Lada for fun, but I didn't really want Russian-based software on my machines, even though Kaspersky had offices in the United States. But that's just me. Anyway, Kaspersky Labs said that they will start shutting down operations in the United States on the 20th of July and lay off all U.S.-based employees, which is less than 50 people, but nevertheless, sorry, folks, if that's you. Now, I do hope that you knew that already and you're not just hearing it on this show and you're like, wait, what? But anyway, the reason behind all this is a lot of politics at the same time. The Department of Commerce designated AO Kaspersky Lab, OOO Kaspersky Group, Russia, and Kaspersky Labs Limited of the UK onto their list of entities, which means that U.S. businesses are not supposed to conduct business with them. And the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned 12 executives of Kaspersky and froze their assets. The Department of Commerce Bureau of Industry and Security banned the company from selling its software and delivering updates back in September due to cybersecurity risks associated with the company. So Kaspersky turned around and said they would just completely shut down operations in the United States due to the oppressive nature of rulings from the running dog lackeys of the imperialist pigs. They might not have said that last part, but something to that accord. So, yeah, they're shutting down. So I guess if you want Kaspersky, now is the time to get it before it's gone, or avoid it. Barracuda said that a recent phishing campaign uses legitimate URL protection services to mask malicious email links. Pretty interesting to me when I saw that headline. I mean, we spent years telling people, you got to review the links and make sure the links look legitimate and so forth. And of course, now there's a way around it. Imagine that. Hackers figure out a way around. Yeah. Well, the new tactic was revealed on Monday, and they said it has been being used since mid-May of this year in various campaigns. But basically what it is an anti-phishing tool is turned into a phishing tool. So, I mean, it's hacking mentality, right there in front of your very face, right? So basically the way this works is anti-phishing protection rewrites links. So when a link comes in an email, it gets rewritten. And then that is sent to a protection service, which reviews the link, the original link, and then scans the original link for threats, and then either blocks it or allows it based on whatever criteria the people controlling it set. So, for instance, if they had, say, .executable or .exe files attached to them and things like that. But this particular type of attack involves the attacker wrapping the phishing link in a legitimate protection service domain. So they know what domains are considered legit, and then they wrap that up in that domain. And that means that the automated tool, which is processing, a quadrillion emails a day, or as Josh was saying earlier, a Brazilian emails a day, may well think that it's legitimate. And the attackers are using compromised business domains that have URL protection services already associated with them to generate these pre-wrapped links. So they go out, they compromise something, totally legitimate, and then they wrap it. I'm not going to say anything because then I'll get in trouble, but basically, you know what I mean? So essentially it's like putting an envelope inside of another envelope that appears to be a legitimate business so that you open the first one and then, you end up with spam in your hands or something like that. Although this is usually a lot worse than that. It's like those fake envelopes you get that look really important, that's like pending or, bill due or IRS, and you open, oh my God, and you open it and then you find out it's just one of those stupid, sweepstakes scams or something. But the emails linked to the campaign contain typically fake password reset reminders and fake DocuSign documents as lures. That doesn't mean they can't change that either, of course. The domains included in this particular campaign they were looking at were WANBF, WANBF.com, and ClareLock.com, CLARELOCKE.com. According to the report, hundreds of organizations have already been targeted by these attacks. So you might want to, think about that a little bit. In a U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency report last week, CISA said that a 2023 Red Team exercise was conducted and that the technicians involved attempted to break into the network of an unnamed civilian executive branch agency using tactics and techniques similar to those of nation-state attackers, with the goal being total compromise of the network and access to sensitive data obtained. Wow, I would not want to have been on that team, at least initially, because that sounds like a pretty tall order. When they say, yeah, we want to total compromise the network and all sensitive data, okay, or maybe we could just see if we could get a password or say, okay, yeah. But the Red Team was completely successful. Ouch. CISA said they have concerns about the fundamental security practices at the agency. I was like, you think? The attackers got in by exploiting a known vulnerability in Solaris and then phished Windows credentials to gain full network access. Well, you know what? If you've got open vulnerabilities in your network that are known even, this wasn't like some weird 0 day that the NSA figured out or something. It was like literally a known vulnerability, hadn't been patched, like say an Exim server or something. So because then here's where it went. That agency had trust relationships with multiple external partner organizations. And the Red Team, was then able to exploit the external organizations as well. And they remained undetected by anyone throughout the exercise. It just keeps getting worse. CISA went on and said the Red Team, all that you've already heard, and the Red Team was able to eavesdrop on the Blue Team's communications to stay one step ahead of any countermeasures that were being used. So they had the police radio. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, I think, isn't this the basic plot of Smokey and the Bandit? I mean, I think it's pretty worrisome. I mean, it's really embarrassing for this agency as well. But I mean, that is why you need to be doing these kind of pen tests, right? I mean, that's the whole point of pen tests is to find these kind of holes before Sandworm or Foamy Panda or Tossed Octopus or some other nation state comes calling. I mean, really. And so before you spend too much time making fun of the government, you might want to check your own network, because who knows this podcast, well, it's coming from inside the building. Yeah. All right. Well, we talked about the AT&T breach last week, and in follow-up news, the breach has been linked to an American hacker living in Turkey, and the report says a significant ransom was paid to ensure the stolen information would be deleted. Now, AT&T revealed that the breach affected nearly all of their wireless customers last week, which is like more than 100 million people. And they said that in April, the attacker had exfiltrated the records of customer calls and text interactions from May 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2022, as well as the 2nd of January, 2023, like some arbitrary date. And that the attack originated from the AT&T workspace on a third-party cloud platform widely now believed to be Snowflake. Now, they said that all this was just number-to-number information, that they did. What was in that call you made to 1-800-NAUGHTY-WEASEL was not compromised, and all those texts between you and Glenn in marketing talking about how much you really like NSYNC, yeah, that they didn't get that. But they did get the fact that you connected with those numbers somehow. Well, over the weekend, Wired Magazine reported that AT&T paid a hacker $370,000 in Bitcoin in May to prevent the data from being leaked. And they paid Shiny Hunters Group, which are well known. And then Shiny Hunters provided proof of the transaction. The original ransom demand was allegedly $1 million. $1 million. But, you always haggle on ransoms. I mean, come on. I mean, who pays sticker price for ransoms? It's like, really? I mean, it's like buying a new car. You get a ransom demand. You don't pay the first offer. You go, you counter. It takes hours. You go back and forth. You say $1 million, I say $50. You say, 999,000, and I say $50, and I'm stalling you while the FBI, yeah, but not really, of course. Wired Magazine said that the hacker was John Benz, who lives in Turkey, and that John was involved. Now, in 2021, Benz took credit for hacking T-Mobile and was indicted, and in fact was then arrested in May of this year in Turkey over the T-Mobile breach. Yeah, you don't want to get arrested in Turkey. Come on. Have you never seen Midnight Express, John? Come on. But now John's being linked to the AT&T hack. Now, a researcher who uses the online name Reddington told Wired he was contacted in April by John Benz, who was claiming to have the call logs from the Snowflake attacks. Reddington said that the entire database for AT&T was stored on a cloud server and that it was indeed deleted when the ransom was paid to Shiny Hunters. Now, apparently they paid Shiny Hunters because John had already been arrested for the T-Mobile hack, so he couldn't, it's not a good idea to receive ransom deliveries when you're actually sitting with the police in that little interview room and they're going, I know you did it. I know it. Give it up. And, somebody's dropping by with satchels full of Bitcoins. Yeah, that kind of thing. Sure. All right. Darkgate is a malware family that is rising to power after the FBI took down a rival family. Sounds like the story, sounds like The Sopranos or something. Anyway, InSilo had discovered this malware back in 2018, but the most recent version was spotted by Spamhaus in late January with new and improved capabilities. Now, the developer of Darkgate uses the name Rastafari, which is a pretty cool name, and it can basically do just about anything. It does key logging. It can do credential theft. It can provide a remote access daemon so that you can reconnect to the server. And, and of course, if you have a remote access daemon that's attached to the server, you can deploy whenever you want to deploy. You can deploy ransomware, you can deploy funny cartoons, anything you want to do, right? So Darkgate basically says that it gives the attacker complete control of the local machine. Now, Darkgate can be deployed all the usual ways. They deploy it with phishing, with social engineering, DLL sideloaders, file sharing services, wares sites, compromised websites. I mean, if you ever want to harvest malware, just find some wares sites, right? I mean, most of us know that. I was trying to find a cracked copy of Antares Harmonizer once just to see how it worked. I wasn't going to use it commercially or anything, but it cost like $10,000, and I was like, I just want to see what this is because I've been reading about it, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to a wares site and see if I can find. Of course, there's these Russian wares sites. I never did get a copy of Antares Harmonizer that wasn't so full of malware. I was scared to even run it on like a sandbox space, so I never did run it, but. I did, and then I got distracted with all the malware code, and I don't even know why. Yeah, anyway. But anyway, Proofpoint has documented more than 14,000 campaigns using Darkgate for access just by the group TA571. Now, since the FBI took out QBot in August of 2023, Darkgate is now sort of apparently the replacement for that, I guess. I mean, this stuff's common, right? And it's not going to stop any more than taking out Carmine Galante, stopped organized crime in Brooklyn. I mean, poor Carmine, the cigar Galante gets shot in Joe and Mary's restaurant on Knickerbocker Street. Did that stop or no? I mean, he wasn't shot by the FBI. They're not sure who shot him. And they said it was, they couldn't make the guy out. Yeah, exactly. But you do need to train your employees because, filter everything twice, train some more. Somebody's going to click on these links or, answer the phone, and a guy named Sid is going to convince you to download it and let them fix your computer. You know how that story goes. And Darkgate apparently is the new one. So check it out. I do keep warning about this here, but here it is again. Fake AWS packages were downloaded hundreds of times from an open source NPM JavaScript repositories that contain backdoors. Imagine that. These packages, img-aws-s3-object-multipart-copy and legacy AWS-s3-object-multipart-copy were names that attempt to appear as AWS-s3-object-multipart-copy. Sound similar? One of those is legitimate. And of course, people search for these particular things because this is a library that is used to build into your JavaScript code to copy files for S3, which is Amazon's cloud service file storage area. So it would be really easy to not see the slight differences in those or even maybe know what the differences are. The fake files have legitimate code and actually work, but they also have their own little file contained in them called loadformat.js, which contains just some really innocuous code and 3 JPEG images. But when you run it, you run anything that involves this, it reconstructs a Trojan. And well, you know what happens then. But I just bring this up again because your devs are using libs. And when a solution presents itself at 3 a.m. to the problem you've been trying to solve, you install it and run with it. So you really need to be thinking about what kind of mechanisms are you going to put in place to control this type of thing, even at the front end dev environment. I mean, not just that prod dev gate. When you got that person that oversees the movement from prod to dev, and they're supposed to review all this stuff. Yeah, right. But if your devs machines are already backdoored from this because they downloaded this stuff in the first place, it's a lot easier to embed all sorts of things in your network or just steal your proprietary code or, hey, put Darkgate on all your systems and then ransomware them and get you to pay $370,000. But they would ask for $1 million first. So be sure to negotiate down. But I mean, look, we've all installed libs and we probably didn't think much about typing pip with something after it. And this is turning into a real problem, and it's going to get worse. Lots more details in this article, and they do have all the code and everything of it. So if you're interested in such things. Finally, from so little sleeping and so much reading, his brain dried up and he went completely out of his mind. But we're glad, as it gave us none other than Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh. That was translated from the original Spanish.
Whatever. Dear God. I have learned just not even bothering, man, with you. You're just, oh, dear Lord. Anyway, hi, how are you?
I'm good. That was from Don Quixote.
Yeah, no, I know, but like, I don't have the right hat. I kind of have the right mustache. I could deal with that. But anyway.
Oh. You don't need you just get a hat. I'll send you a hat.
If you send me a steel Conquistadors hat, it would be hilarious, dude.
Ooh, that would be hilarious.
And you know you'd keep it.
I'll see if I've got one over here in the closet.
It's weird enough that you actually might have one in the closet that it actually made me go, he might have one. Anyway.
Yeah, there's no telling what might be.
All right, so let's talk. I picked a story today that I'm really like. It's about business email compromise in the automotive industry. Now, look, business email compromise is nothing new. Like we've had this over and over again. How many times have we talked about it in various stories and security awareness training that we've given? Talking to clients about it, talking to like everybody. We've talked about business email compromise for God knows how long, how many times. However, what's interesting is that they are targeting specific verticals. Not long ago, it was, and so it's not so much the automotive industry, it's that there are specific verticals that are targeted at various times. It's almost like a trend. So it's trendy for the cyber criminals to target automotive companies now. Yay! It's funny, and it's not, because the problem is that most of these verticals aren't. You know, in the worlds that we live in, Doug, it's like you're in academia, I'm in the compliance and commercial space and government consulting space. These companies have entire departments for compliance and security, but there's so many verticals out there that don't. They don't have departments for compliance. They don't have departments for cybersecurity. You know, and this goes back to the Department of Defense, or sorry, the government going, hey, there's 3.2 million cyber vacancies. And you go, no, there's not. What are you talking about? I know lots of people that are looking for work that can't find a job. And it's because they list false jobs, or the government's gone, well, you've got 50 people. You need 3 cyber people. You tell me a single 50-person company, other than some hedge funds, that have 3 cyber people, I'd be shocked. Okay. So what we've got trends going after verticals that aren't as well protected, but have just as many assets. You go after the automotive industry, they not only have lots and lots of suppliers, they're sending money around like crazy. So you can just go, oh, you know, I'd love to change the account number you're sending that $5 million check to. Or you can go and say, hey, look at these plans for this new car you've got. Such a shame if they got put on the open internet, wouldn't it be? Wouldn't you like to pay me a little to make sure that they don't get? I mean, it's literally like the mafia boys and the protection racket. Okay. So you've got a huge indicator here that we're seeing the cyber criminals go after the underprotected or the unprotected industries, like automotive, like healthcare, like law firms, like there's lots of them. And there's lots of people with lots of money in lots of these verticals that are, well, not have lots of protection. So now I'm not telling them, advocating them to go out for birth control. This is a different kind of protection, just to be clear. But this kind of protection is important. And yeah, it does cost money, but we have to do it. There's regulatory issues at stake. You know, with the automotive industry, I happen to know there's TISAX, which is a German automotive industry protection around your information and your plans, because they want to protect all the stuff that they're handing them. You know, when you hand your supplier the blueprints for your new supercar, because they need to build out the muffler or the tires or whatever, it is a huge intellectual property exercise of handing these things over. You have to know that they're protecting that information. So they have their own regulatory standard. It's called TISAX. But how many companies are going to go through that effort, that go do that? Some are, some aren't. So we need to make sure that these industries, these verticals, are protected. How do we do that? Do we go and do something with a simple industry standard? Well, there's lots of standards out there. I mean, there's lots. Okay, I've been working on 35 different ones, incorporating them into a product in the very recent past. And there's hundreds that we haven't even touched yet. We're getting to that. But we've got to have an ability to stop the business email compromise of the automotive industry, of the email attacks of anybody, and the voicemail compromise and the business email compromise of all of these different companies. And it's absolutely terrifying that of this 3.2 million, I forget the number, cyber job vacancy, we simply don't realize that there is not that vacancy, and that these companies are not well protected, and nothing's going to make them well protected unless you make it pretty well mandatory. And then you're going to have the people going, well, you're raising the barrier to entry. Yeah, to a certain extent, but table stakes should include security. If you don't have security on your information, are you tall enough to ride? We know Doug is. He rides anything he can get his hands on. But other than Doug, is any vertical company out there in a underserved or undersecured industry, undersecured vertical, tall enough to ride the ride of being on the internet? And other than the billion-dollar guys, the ones that know that they need to protect themselves, how about the small ones? How about the 3-person design shop that does amazing work, but has, RDP open to the internet? Who's checking that? And why aren't we all doing it? So that's my rant in terms of cybersecurity and supply chain security. We should be checking all of our suppliers. We should be checking all of our customers. We should be working together to secure things. There's my rant. Back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, when I was working as an auditor, it was really easy for me to recommend that, you hire all these people. It was really difficult for companies to actually do that. Even if they could find the people, when you say, yeah, hire 20 more people to manage all these processes. And then they're like, yeah, sure, we can just shut the doors then. But then again, I also argue that, well, maybe, you do what they said the same thing when they told them they had to put in fire exits and fire extinguishers and stop locking the doors so you could escape from the building when it was burning, a la the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory
Shirtwaist fire
and all that kind of stuff. So, sometimes businesses just have to suck it up and take a small hit, and maybe the CEO will have to forego that extra yacht next year or something like that. But,
seatbelts. You want seatbelts in cars? What's wrong with you?
Oh, Josh was just cut off by somebody. All right. Thank you, Josh. And finally, I'm a huge advocate of not necessarily changing things that don't need changing. Just because something's new and faster and bigger and a different color doesn't mean you necessarily need to do it. But some things are a bit much. So apparently, according to this article, which is in German, but you can translate it, apparently the German Navy is trying to work on modernizing some of their frigates because their frigates rely on 8-inch floppy disks. Now, I have used 8-inch floppy disks and 5.25-inch floppy disks and 3.5-inch floppy disks, which aren't really that floppy, but the 8-inch floppy disks are really floppy, let me tell you. And yeah, but the German frigates use floppy disks for their onboard data acquisition systems, which is like everything on the ship. I mean, it was like the fuel flow, everything is stored on these 8-inch floppy disks. And they didn't say which 8-inch floppy disks. And I am leaving it up to Paul's Security Weekly to pick up this story and make all the puns about 8-inch floppy disks. But this is a family show. But, anyway, the ones I remembered had like a mag on them, I think. But there was a Burroughs double-sided one that had like 2 mags on it. And the old 5.25 discs that came with the original IBM PCs that made all this loud, clunking, vibrating sound when they started up was like 250K. I think there was a 512K version of it too. That was maybe a double-sided one. You had to actually take it out and flip it over or something really strange like this, like a cassette tape almost. And of course, you also hear that nuclear weapons in the United States relied on 8-inch floppy disks. And I looked to see, and back in 2019, they said it was being phased out. And I'm like, yikes. And of course, the other story I found when I was looking for the nuclear weapons, the nuclear silos and all this stuff having floppy disks was at Boeing 747s, the beloved, 2-decker aircraft that's been flying since the 60s. They update their systems today using 3.5-inch floppy disks, which I guess is an update from the 5.25 and the 8 inches and who knows what else. I mean, all those things, though, to be fair, military, government, aircraft, they all require massive specs to be changed. So like, I know you want to change something involving nuclear, you have to go through all these different commissions and all these things have to be redone. It's not just like I unplug it and plug in something else. Like when you took that old 5.25-inch drive out of your machine and replaced it with a really fast honking new 3.5-inch drive and all your friends were so envious. Yeah. Apparently even some 737s use floppy disks for update. I mean, it works, but like, gee, and I think I have a box of 3.5s out there, like outside that door over there, if anybody wants to bid on them, or if Deutsche Marine wants to call me and say, we give you like 1 million euros for that box of 3.5-inch discs, as we kind of need them. But anyway, and that is the news. Thank you, Josh. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.